Well, hello, and welcome back to Red Fox Classics, where we have a Mk2 GT6 with a door with a great big hole in it. Actually, just on camera, 2 more doors, and none of them were any good. So I've given in and ordered the skin. I really wanted to save, for one, make at least 1 out of 3, but they're just bad, unfortunately. So, first job is going to be to get this off the car, get the skin off, and get the shell repaired. Now this looks like the best door in terms of the shell. So we're going to run with this one, and, well, I do have another one. I've got a Californian door for a Mark 4 1500, which I could have adapted, but it's actually too wide, won't go in the door aperture. It hits, which I think is to do because it's got a California spec, late California spec. It's got reinforcement bar in it, and just won't go in the hole, won't go in the door. So I got to use the rusty British ones. Anyway, it's not joking. Let's get the skin off and see how bad the shell is. So you see, obviously that bit of the skin's knackered. That would have not been too bad a repair. We've got a ding in the body line there. All that's been bashed in and hammered out. So we'd have the body mount would end up being made out of body filler, because I can't straighten that. It's not saying it's impossible, but I don't know how to do it. Don't have those skills. We've got a dent there. It's kind of difficult to see in the dent when the cut up there. All around the locks is damaged. It's rotten on the inside of this lip as well. So I'm just going to take it off. If you've not seen this before, door has a flat. There's a sheet skin on it, and then a fold that goes round and gets pinched over the edge. So the easiest way to take it off is to grind away this edge, or the edges. So you can separate 3 layers of metal, which is the skin, the door shell, and then the other side of the skin, and pull it off. There's a couple of tacks on the inside of here, and then a bit of brazing at either end to keep the whole thing together. So let's cut it apart. So you can just about see it there. That's the edges of our layers start to come apart, and this is where you want to stop because you don't want to go too far into the shell. And something like a paint scraper that you're not too precious about will help you get between those layers and separate them. There's not really any surprises here. Which was that first? Don't know. Really, all this was rotten because the whole bottom of the skin had gone. That's bare metal. We've still got the original dip primer, you can see here. This area all looks fine. And if you remember the other side, if you're watching then, that was completely knackered. The hinge area, I took all of this apart, built it again. Did the same with my Spitfire as well. So this is winning the best door prize so far. Maybe a little bit of repair needed there. That is just typically pretty frilly, but it's not as bad. I built this whole bracket and spit on the other door, so a bit to cut out there. But yeah, looking promising. So I'll get the dust mask on and go around all of these edges to see if there's anything. I'll see how pitted this lot is, because maybe I want to cut some out. But otherwise, we are looking pretty good. So I've just started off getting some bits done. Cut that off of there because there's a little bit of brazing, a little bit of rot or heavy rust. So just make another one of those. Got a little bit primed to sneak in the corner there, and bent up this piece to make the replacement bottom. It's a bit beyond the capability of my DIY metal folder, so I've also had to give it a bit of a hammer and then just ever so gently run it through the shrink, like just dropping with the weight of the handle, because it was just not quite straight, but like really gentle all the way along. Got it. So we get this in here. I'm going to go from about there to where it starts to curve, and then that bit will be separate. Well, there we go, that is cut in and clamped on. I should have done some paint cleanup before I did that, but I think I'll just stick something in here, clean up for some tacks, and then come back and take the paint off more thoroughly so I can get it welded. But yeah, getting on with that. I'm able to straighten out these, which is nice because this is going to be the first door I've done where I don't have to repair those or replace them. So let's get some welding done. So I got that quite well tacked in. It's nicely stayed in place. Welding on the inside, so I don't really care too much about grinding. I'm getting reasonable penetration, but not huge, so that'll clean up all right from the outside, and I won't have to. Yeah, it's under the bottom of the door anyway, so it's all right. I've come around. There was a little bit of damage around the edge of that pressing, so I welded that from the back. And I've started to do some little bits of repair in here, which is still hot, so keep the hand away. I just realised I'm kind of rushing around and trying to do lots of stuff, and I don't need to be rushing, so I might as well call it a day for today and get back on this, well, probably tomorrow. So that's fully welded. It did kink a bit. In my experience, I got a habit of doing that, but all I did was sit it on the edge of the bench. So the bench was the dolly, and the handle along the seam. And that was, got it flattened out. Got this little bit welded in, tidied up. I've got that to go in there, and that little bit is just off the corner of that door screw, because obviously it's already exactly the right curvature. So I'll get that welded in, and there's not a great deal left. What have we got? Oh yeah, that little bit in the corner, and then this is the worst bit, but we can deal with that. After finishing up this corner, I've gone to the other, and I've just chopped that bit out because there's not much left. What I'm going to do is build that replacement, put it in, and then build the outer panel on top of it, because you can see all of that needs to go too. I've just nipped out and I've stuck the spot blaster in that corner, and it's, well, it's good enough that I'm going to be able to come quite close to the edge on the outside. So I think what I'm going to do for this is completely unsophisticated and just stick it over a vise and hit it with a hammer until I get that channel, because we only really need this little chunk. Doesn't really matter what it looks like, it's to give us some strength. So I'll cut myself a bit of metal and get on with that. So the jaws will fit around that. A ball peen hammer is about that size. And I don't really need very much here, so let's see what it's going to do, isn't it? Of course, most of this was missing, so did I leave myself enough room to make the shape I want? Let's find out. So that would have been there, and we're basically missing that bit, which is fine actually, because it's kind of there. So it's going to be something like that. Down, bend there, bend there, bend there, pull the string. Right, cut that bit there-ish. Right, so I'm going to reduce that down to something like this, or something like that shape. Okay, so now those are the bends I really care about. Everything else is neither here nor there really. So they want to be a bit dead on there. And do them in the vise. Yeah, well, yeah, like that. It seems that'll work. That'll work, won't it? Okay, so we'll need to trim on that end to there, because this is supposed to go into that indent, which it doesn't at the moment, so right there. There. Put the top down too. There you go. Yes, there's a great big gap there. Get fill it with welded rod, I think. It's only about making that join strong. It'll just be not super pretty. Anyway, that will go in there, and then I'll have to make that bit. So now I'm going to move to this corner, which is a common Spitfire rock point, and it looks hard to deal with, and it kind of is, but you can kind of
kind of cheat, because all I'm going to do here, this is another piece of door skin because it's got the curve, which is exactly that. I'll clamp it in here. I'm going to cut half circle, you know, so I've got less metal there, and then I'm going to clamp it on here and just hammer form it around the door shell, because we only need to get this sort of bit, which is perfectly possible in this. Just lop something like that out of the middle. I'll have a dolly behind, just to try and make sure I'm not hammering onto the shell too much, but then cut this out, tack that in place, and then start to just fit it and trim it till it meets that outer face, and we'll be good. So I'll get that welded up, and then we can chop the edge off, and that corner will be done. So that's done. It needs a bit of a grind underneath. I'll do that when I've got to turn the door over and paint, you know, prep these edges and all that. Just go in there. So last bit, I think it's the last bit. I'm looking for more because it's been suspiciously easy. But no, I think that's it. I think this is the last bit. It's to make that section. So what I will probably, well, I'm going to try and do this time is cut myself another flat bit and just try and tip over and hammer form that edge round, because it might be the same shape as my magic dolly. Yeah, look, almost there. Not quite. Anyway, try and tip that lip over. Yeah, get that welded in, get that spot welded together. Got the little pieces going there somewhere. Yeah. And weld up with stress cracks and all that. And then we're ready to skin. Oh well, to paint and skin. So I got my rectangle here. It's going to be that. I think I'm going to try and go past that line, just a tiny way. So I need to make quite a sharp bend, and then a more gentle one back. So I'm going to do that in the vise and hammer it so I get a sharp line, and then try and bend it back again. So I've tried several things and they've all turned out a mess, so let's go for plan B and not try and make that line. So there's my curve. Let's cut it down so there's only a little lip. Start by tipping it over. Okay, I've just been getting on really, because I don't think this has been going very well. Anyway, I've got that. So I'm gonna, I'll probably take the top off, so I've got that line. Yeah, there we go. Right, let's cut away some of this door shell. In this case, we're expecting to slide that way because that'll sit up there, so I won't be well inboard of that line. Okay, so that fits all right now. So I best do some priming. You get this welded, and I have to build up the little edge here as well. I'll see you in a sec. Well, there's that in. I did get the spot welder out and do those bits with it. No, I'm not talking about. It's always a bit of a faff really, because it takes a lot of setup. But this is neater, so whatever. I found I just had to cut that edge off as well because it was just really fragile. So I have to make myself a little bit to go in there. But first, let's get this ground down. I just spent some time fiddling around trying to make myself a bent over piece that would nicely go around and fit in, and I've stopped. I'm just going to prime myself a little bit of sheet, weld that in there. I'll build it up with some scraps and some welding rod and just grind myself a shape out, because that's going to be the best way to get something that looks reasonable. Other than that, barring clean up of any surface rust, the door shell is done, I think. Oh, I've got to run around here another time with the dolly because it's lumpy from either the clips going on, the trim clips going on, weather strip clips going on, or someone removing them by yanking the whole thing upwards. So I'll see you when I've done that. So there's that corner built out of weld. So let's get the grinder on it and pretty it up a bit. So there we go. After some grinding, that's all right. That'll be done. And for comparison, that's what an original one looks like. So, on these later cars, they have that crack. So, cut in the door to prevent stress cracking. So, I've got lots of little bits of touch up that I'm not well at, for example, and grinding and tiny little things to fill in. Gotta get off the old spot, tack welds, what they are, and then get all these edges cleaned up and get ready to put skin on. So I'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll see you again when it is skin fitting time. What I nearly forgot is the drain slot in the front. So I'm just going to take this cylindrical, what's it called, burr bit, and grind through the edge here. So we're nearly there. Most of the edge cleaned up quite well, except for this trailing edge. I've had to have some rust remover on there. I use that stuff quite extensively, and it's expensive, but it works. And you can see it actually removes rather than converts. Still going to have a bit of something on there as an extra protection, but should last ages, fortunately. Now I've just gone to take that off of, or that template off of the California door, and as I suspected, not quite right. So I need to tip round that edge a little bit more, which I just do with hammer and dolly. Then we're ready for a quick trial of the skin, and then get all the inside bits painted ready to put them together. So I'm hoping this is a subtle enough little change that I'm just going to be able to encourage it around like this. Yeah, that'll do. This is always an area that needs a bit of a trim anyway. Because the door skin fades away to almost no lip and it ends up welded or, well, originally brazed and on there. It's got a rough idea of how it looks. So top and bottom, or top it seems alright. Feels like the last one, I think I'm going to have to go on the right hand door, I'm going to have to go and cut along here and move this lip round, probably grafting on a bit of another skin. Because it just didn't feel like it was long enough, or tall enough. And this doesn't either. On the intact door just behind, it's not. I think it is. So the intact door just behind the lock, where did I measure from? Or just in front of the lock. That was 14.25, which it is. And down there it was at 5.5, which it isn't. So that bit is definitely shorter on this skin than the original skin. However, the Californian door I've got, which is untouched as well, is 1/8 of an inch shallower, or less long, whatever that word is. So I'm just going to have to start fitting it and prepare for the idea of some surgery at the bottom of the skin if it won't all the way round. Right, what's first? Trim here and here on the skin to get that bit's fit. Make sure everything else sits nicely as we are. So I feel my repair here is going to need an extra trim, which is fine. I'll get stuff painted. And I will see you then. So, the door shell's painted inside now. Just did it with some of this, which seemed to go on quite well. I gave everything a pretty good clean down with a wire brush. But there was still the little bits of surface rust, and so just some stuff that should cope. Now, before doing anything else, I have to fill this bit with wax oil, because this is the area, well, if you watch my right hand door video, this is the area that really just disintegrates, and this one is fine at the moment. In fact, this whole door was pretty good. Like, I can't remember if I showed it, but you could just see the original paint. A bit of surface rust because it was thin, because they weren't deliberately painted inside. But other than the bottom, there wasn't much wrong with it. Anyway, let's crack it full of this. Now I'm going to give that a decent bit of time to set, because it remains liquid quite a while, and if you move stuff too soon, you end up covered in it, which I don't want to. But when that's done, the skin's ready to go on. Not quite enough doors here, I think. Anyway, that is the skin we need. It is primed and painted where appropriate. Well, through primed, I should say. As this, hopefully feels like the wax oil is dried enough that we can get on. So I'm going to clear off the bench, take the vice off, so I've got room to work all the way round, and let's get the skin attached. So to start with, I'm going to get this on. This is an extra bit that the GT6 doors have that Spitfire doors don't, and it's the reinforcement that kind of sits underneath the quarter light. I made a mistake. Well, I did something different on the other door, and I don't think it worked. Well, no, it didn't work, rather. And my gap at the top is not good enough, and I need to go back and revisit it. Anyway, this time I'm going to weld this on, and I'm going to stick with it. And I'm going to make the rest of the door flow down, hopefully. So anyway, I just measured that is supposed to be about 3 3/8 inches along here. And now skin on from the top. We'll see how we can get it to line up. I think I might have been fussing about nothing with this one, because it feels like it's wanting to behave. So what I'm wanting to make sure of is that the gap that the glass is going to go in is even all the way along, and matches with this one, which is the door that came off the car and has an even gap. I did notice that my later rot-free but not bodge-free door, you can see the gap's wider at the back, so even from the factory they weren't perfect, at least in the later years. By eye this looks okay, so what I'm going to want to do, I'm going to measure that, and then I'm going to tack it there, and tack it here, and then try and bring it round with clamps. Well, that's even a little bit tight. The other door just doesn't want to play nice. Well, definitely doesn't want to play nicely with me. So this being a little too tight is not going to work because this quarter light won't go in, and it's because my little reinforcement piece is that little bit too narrow. Which I don't quite understand because it fitted, I'm sure it fitted in the other door. Anyway, before I cut this off, I want to see if I can flatten it out and remake the bend just on here. Well, it's successfully flattened. Well, that might have worked. It made no difference whatsoever. A sneaky feeling that went back in exactly the same place too. Just about acceptable. Alright, now let's get a couple of tacks in so we don't lose that position. What I'm trying not to do here is just get the clamp and squash it with the clamp, because it's going to probably push into the door skin and we don't want that. If you think about here, we are contacting, but it's not necessarily perfectly the same shape yet, especially as I repair this. So there's definitely a possibility to take it out of line. I can see on the back it's all sitting in here relatively neatly, so let's start turning the skin over, and they go down the sides and then along the bottom. So this is now a case of getting a nice flat dolly which you're going to pop onto the edge of the skin, so that the edge of the dolly is right up against the edge of where you want to fold. Use to move the clamp. And then start to tip over that edge. You might find, you will find, you need to move the clamps around a little bit, because what I don't want to do is finish one bit and then move on to the next, because then you end up with a a wobbly edge, which I have done. As we get further round, it starts to support itself, and that bit, even if we take the clamp away, it's pretty well held. So I'm going to go and do that all the way round, get it to probably about that sort of stage, and then we move on to using the skinning pliers. So now I've gone all the way around, I've got as far as I can with the hammer and dolly, and I find at the corners with these replacement skins, this one's usually quite minimal as to the rear corner, as to how much overlap they give you, and there never seems to be enough on the front corner. Anyway, this is not quite, we take the clamp away, it's popping up a little, so this is where I'm going to start. Well, here is where we're going to start. Now this, that goes on the outside face, and this is what's squashing down your lip. It's very easy to grab it and go like that. So I've found, put my hand under there, under the face of the door, to try and make sure it's, well, it's easy to go like that or like that and twist the edge of your door shell, door skin. So I stick my hand underneath, helps not do that. But it is one of those things you get a bit of a feel for. Anyway, so, right, pad under the back, and then we're gently squashing down, and just doing a little bit, and going along. Just kind of a limit. I'll have to finish off that right edge with the back of the hammer. There. So that needs an extra final go down, but I'm just going to go in the whole door, little by little. Pinching it down. So when we get to the corner here, we're not just folding the metal, we're forcing the inside edge to shrink. So they may need a bit of address with a hammer. But this lets you get a good way, and hopefully now if we take that off, and it's still popping up a little bit. And there, actually, I feel I probably need to do another pass along here with the hammer, because as you can see, if we try and squash that, it's probably not going to push it down, it's probably going to crush it. And this is we want this nice and straight. Obviously it can be fixed, but if we can get it nice and straight now, we don't need to. And you can get a skinning hammer which is like this but better. I thought this was a skinning hammer when I bought it actually, but they got a much more curved, flat face end on there. The aim being you want to be able to hit down into that edge like that. Then, when you've gone all the way around and got it almost all the way there, and you're happy, and come in again and get it as far on as you can, and give it a good two-handed squeeze. Again, making sure you don't tip it up and down. And all the way along again. So that'll now crimp it as far down as you can go with one of these. As I said, I'll finish off this corner, back of the hammer. and then that'll get a line of weld. Would have been brazed originally, but yeah, right. So I'll go and do that all the way around. Then we'll have a see what it looks like on the car, and if it's good, we'll do a series of little welds around the edge just to hold it in place. So this is what I mean about there not being quite enough material on this front corner. As you can see, tiny little gap there. This is only just about touching the inner shell. Now yes, I repaired this bit, but I repaired it and I stuck the original bit that I cut off over the top, so it is not quite right. So I am going to weld along there just to keep it in place when we checked the car. You can also see that this E-coat stuff is flaking off, which is why you've seen me strip it and paint the insides of these edges. Because if it's happening on the outside, it's probably happening on the inside too. And then we don't actually have any paint on. So hopefully my paint survives a bit better. Anyway, let's move some of the spare doors and hang this one up. For what it is, it's fitting pretty well. I've just done the quickest of mess around to try and get it to sit nicely. It's catching on the latch. So you maybe hear that scrape. I don't trust any of the panels around it because the sill's definitely bad. The wing looks very much like it's fitted by the same people, so having some adjustment somewhere I'm not too bothered about, but it fits in the hole it's got at the moment, and maybe needs a little tweak up on that corner to bring it in line with what is called scuttle. But I don't want to do any of that until I've got the bonnet, and I'm going to build, as I eventually want to do on the other side, build the side of the car and gap it, and with everything together. So let's pop this back off again. We'll do those little welds, and that'll be this done. So what I also noticed is it does put the body line above the line of this sill, which is feeding my conviction that the sill's wrong. So got a little tacks around the edge. Nothing along the bottom, but I did with this primer again on my welding. I found a whole lot of bits where I'd got pinholes or not fully welded or whatever. So yeah, did them and all that side, and then that just gets a little stitch down the edge. I've also done some tidying up around the corner and here, and realised I've forgotten to weld that bit. The reinforcement bracket thing. Yeah, I'll do that a bit. It's way too hot today, really, for doing all this nonsense. But yeah, I've more holes in. Anyway, we're done. Aside from all those little bits I just told you I missed. But I'll get onto them. But I do feel this door is another big milestone, because it leaves us, barring more rust turns, because it will. But it leaves us with this side of the car, just the car. So we've got to see what horrors lurk under the sill, or probably the wing as well. But I know there's not that much, because I know the really bad bits on this car have generally been alright. It's mostly been, I think, storage that's been unkind to this. That's why the tops of the original doors were all knackered, I think. It must have been under a tarpaulin or something, just getting wet in the weird places. So I think we're going to find typical Spitfire GT6 minor rust underneath these things. Anyway, we will find out next time, because next time I'm going to cut something off the bottom of this car. But in the meantime, thanks for watching. If you have got this far into this video and you're not yet subscribed, please consider doing so. It's a free thing. You just need to be logged in to YouTube, and you can click subscribe button, and it helps me, and you're going to get then a notification when the next bit of this GT6 restoration comes out. Thanks everyone who is subscribed. Thanks everyone who comes back regardless, or even if you're new, especially if you're new.
Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.